Hey everyone, it's Lee Goldstein, the Trading Director of 10 Minute Trades. I want to welcome you to the 43rd episode of the 10 Minute Trades podcast. How do you trade the news? So, last week we had some new settings on DMMs to help us navigate these very volatile, liquidity challenged news event markets. What we're seeing are news events taking place and orders drying up. For instance, the NQ, ES, and even gold also on certain reports at the exact moment that the news comes out. The orders aren't there, so you don't get filled, for instance, on a breakout trade. So, what are some of the things we can do to alleviate this issue? Range trades, which trigger later in the news cycle, sometimes just a few seconds after an event takes place, the liquidity comes back and your orders get filled. And that really depends on the report. For instance, on the jobs report, people were able to trade gold and get filled, yet the ES had a liquidity event. I call a liquidity event when all the orders dry up and you can't get filled. Even on a range trade, the ES didn't fill. But what was interesting, gold got filled. We did recommend larger brackets, larger stops, and that works safely. Ironically, the bracket could have been a little bit smaller, but these are things you never know because the last four gold trades in the jobs report absolutely required much larger brackets. So let me talk about a couple of the events that we looked at last week. Briefly, let's talk about the oil open, which is really behaving well. The oil open is my favorite open, and we've been experimenting again with the NQ open. On select days, the NQ open can be a very interesting trade. So come into the trade room if you want to learn our setups for the oil open and the NQ open. ISM manufacturing took place last Monday, and if we used our old setup with small brackets, like a bracket of 8, even to 10, with stops of 12, it would be a failed trade. But if you used a much bigger bracket, 20 to 25, and a stop of 30, then ISM manufacturing could have been a very nice trade. On same thing is true of the Australia rate statement. The proper size bracket, people made quite a bit of money in the trade room. You needed a bracket of 18 on the Australia rate statement. Keep that in mind for next month because we'll be using at least 18 on the rate statement for Australia. Stop of 25. Okay, no more 12 tick stops on some of these bank rate statements. You'll get caught in a whip. And if you use the bigger stop, 25 to 30, sometimes even larger, you can survive the whipsaws. That's why it's so important to increase the stop size and the bracket. The Jolts Open, pretty much a non-event, just has not been a trade that we can find a good setup for. So we're really not, probably not going to be visiting the Jolts job opening report for a while. It just doesn't respond. It's important news that doesn't respond consistently to any market that we can find. So we'll keep looking at it, but we don't have a great setup for it yet. I can't give up looking at what I think are important reports, but I've been looking at the JOLTS report for a year and a half now. API on Tuesday, another great winner, and that'll be talked about in another trade video, so make sure you keep an eye on your inbox for that. The most interesting non-event of the week was a favorite trade of ours, a family money trade, the ADP report. We've increased the bracket size, increased the stop size. 2 months ago, they suspended the report for a reworking of the data set, a reworking of the way they configure the report. And it came out again last month, and we had a small profit on it. Previously, there were 2 cancellations prior to when they decided to rework the report. We haven't seen cancellations on the ADP report. I can't remember. It's been years. Cancellations occur when a news report is released and there's no fill. In other words, the instrument that you're trading just doesn't move very much. Now, we trade gold on the ADP report, and it was very much a non-event this past week. Very surprising. We're going to keep our eye on the ADP. We would hate to think that that report has changed and is not going to be one of our favorites because for years it's been a major profitable report that we love to trade. So we'll keep an eye on. ISM Services, the little brother, little sister to the ISM Manufacturing. ISM Services used to be called ISM Non-Manufacturing. They changed the name. If you went with the new setup, bigger bracket, bigger stop, it would be a winner. And quite a few people made money in the trade room on ISM Services using the bigger setup. And that's 3 months in a row that that trade has worked. The two prior to last week were the old setup. But as long as the markets stay volatile, we'll use the new setups with bigger brackets, bigger stops. Crude oil inventories, we elected not to trade. It has not been performing well. It was a stop, so it was a good decision. Ironically, the surprise of the month is natural gas. Natural gas went through at least 2 months of complete insanity. Trades that blew through stops, trades that gave you extra profit, trades that just went through the roof, went underground, just everything you can imagine going right or wrong happened in 10 seconds on the natural gas trade. One of the most unsafe reports we've seen in years. For 2 months, untradeable. So, of course, you take a break from the report, it has 4 winners in a row. So, I'll tell you what my plan is going to be for natural gas. I'm waiting for at least a stop. When there's a stop out, if it's normal, in other words, if natural gas is still exhibiting what I call normal behavior, no 50 tick head fakes. I want to see normal behavior. I want to see a normal stop. I don't mind if a report doesn't work and it doesn't work due to normal trading market conditions. But if you get crazy whipsaws, up and down movement that doesn't appear normal, that's when you try to avoid reports. So we're still keeping a good eye on natural gas storage because it is a risky, crazy report. Now, again, we talked about the non-farm employment report. The ES did not fill, no liquidity. The market actually froze. It looked like the NQ froze as well, and it even looked like ZN, a giant liquidity instrument, bonds, 15-year bonds, looked like they were difficult to trade. Amazingly, gold was profitable, and our outside-the-box oil trade hit the first target of 15 ticks. So very interesting. We were testing that oil report, very excited that that oil report's going to be a nice winner on the jobs report. Outside the box trade, I like to call it. Canada's employment report. If you trade Canada, when it trades with the US jobs report, it often is a family money trade. And people made money on Canada on this past event. A couple of things I wanted to talk about next week. Monday's a holiday, Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, no trading. WASD is on Tuesday. Of course, we're going to do some major testing on WASD. It might be a trap. It might be a breakout with much bigger brackets. Of course, when we get there, we'll know. The FOMC has 8 meetings a year. Okay, they hold 8 regularly scheduled meetings a year. And then 3 weeks after select policy decisions, they have the meetings, FOMC meeting minutes. This week, we have FOMC meeting minutes. We've been trading it with an ES range trade. We're going to do a deep dive and see if we can come up with something even better. The API crude oil report will be on Wednesday this coming week because of the Columbus Day holiday. And the Wednesday oil report will be on Thursday this week for the same reason. We've got core retail sales, US retail sales on Friday, still a family money trade. And we've also got preliminary University of Michigan on Friday. Right now, it's not a family money trade, but I have high hopes for that event with new settings, bigger brackets, bigger stops. I think it'll be a nice winner. So listen, that's our podcast for the week. We went over last week, and I also wanted to touch upon a few of the events coming up this coming week. I think that WASD has great potential, the FOMC meeting minutes, and of course, core retail sales. As a trap trade, I would expect. This is Lee Goldstein. Thanks for listening to podcast episode 43. Hope you're all having a great weekend, and I'll see you next week in the trade. Take care, everyone.